Bob, do you like the way I keep you on your toes with the Fed Dead thing? You never know if I'm going to play it or not, do you? You never know if I'm going to remember it.
No, I don't. It's always an adventure, man.
It is always an adventure. Hello, everyone. We're back. Fed Dead Redemption 32, which Bob and I, every time I read that number out, are both surprised it's that many and that few at the same time.
Yeah.
Royal Rumble review certainly feels like a very different tone than last year when we did one of these.
Hmm.
And again, and not before we even go any further, not to say this was a 10, but last year was, we was concerned about our friend Bobby, most importantly. So we're back. Rumble review. Bobby, how are you, mate?
I'm doing well, man. Had a good night watching the show last night. Really enjoy that they're on Saturdays now. Still super into that. Hope it seems like it's going to stay for everything except Mania going forward. So I love it.
Well, Mania's both, right? So
yeah. And that's kind of cool though too. Like that's your only show that's on Sunday now. It's your biggest show.
Yeah. It's the one thing that is still weird is like the Raw delay.
Yeah.
That is still weird. Because that was like part of the pay-per-view, was like the baked-in Raw follow-up. And it's still obviously there. It's just a day later, and it just feels different to me for whatever reason.
It does.
Nonetheless, we do have a lot to talk about. I think with how uneven this show was, I think it makes most sense to kind of approach it like we'll just talk as we go. We'll kind of cover everything rather than going match by match, because some matches deserve more time than others, obviously.
Yes.
I think it's logical to start with how the show closed, honestly, Bob. That's been the kind of headline. The Kevin Owens Roman Reigns match, partly, but mostly the angle that followed it. We were kind of, I think Oracle was the one who brought up the idea of that match closing the show and what that would mean for the show. And I think, that was kind of validated by what we saw. They closed the show, but the angle was the big main event, really. Sami Zayn in one of the more kind of theatrical, cinematic, dare I say, wrestling segments I've seen in recent memory. Sami Zayn's finally booted out of the Bloodline, and it was genuinely an incredible angle. Before we get into that in more detail, Bob, what did you make of the main event itself? And then we'll kind of evolve into that.
Yeah, it was interesting because I think it was probably like the third best of their 3 Rumble matches, but that might speak to the other 2 more than it speaks to this one.
I agree.
I liked it. I thought it was very good. It was maybe missing a little bit for me, but overall, like, it was a great choice to close the show. And then with what came after, like, obviously, that's what people are going to remember. But, just as far as, Roman and Owens are 2 of the best big match guys out there, it was obviously very entertaining.
It was a very, very good match. It definitely suffered from what we kind of just talked about, which is this was more about its place in the story and Sami Zayn's role in it, right? And naturally, that meant that everyone knew Kevin wasn't going to win. It was more about what this means for Sami.
Yeah.
That kind of takes away the heat. You've also, I do have to get this out of the way now. I woke up around 3 hours and 40 minutes into the Rumble, and the main event was beginning. Yeah. And I am still puzzled by how that worked mathematically, because the 2 matches in the middle were not long at all. So that's the other factor here, right? Like, the crowd had been there for a long time. So that kind of hurt the heat for the match a little bit. But they told the story they wanted to tell, and I thought they did an effective job with it. Kevin was terribly sympathetic. Roman is just an absolute monster of a human being, right? I mean, that character is like a truly evil wrestling character.
Yeah.
So the match itself was very good. Now we get to the angle. Bob, what did you make of it? I mean, I think it's kind of been universally praised. What did you think of the closing out of the Rumble?
Yeah, it was excellent. Like, you could kind of tell that's what it was going to kind of build to, especially once Roman got the chair. It was like Sami should take it and hit him with it. I kind of thought the Usos would attack right away, so that was a really nice touch having Jay be unable to do it. I wasn't expecting that part. And then still kind of thought The Rock might come out, and I was honestly glad when he didn't, because I thought it was kind of just perfect the way it was. Like, and this is interesting now because it kind of sets up Sami and Kevin as a tag team, or, there's friction between Jay and the rest of them now, or, you could still do Roman Sami. There's paths now, which I think is really cool too.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. I know this is a real cliche point I'm about to make, and I'm aware of that, and I'm kind of annoyed I'm saying it myself, but I was glad Brock didn't come out, because one of the reasons this angle is so great is because, like, if you're a fan of, one day, Bob, when whoever the fuck's doing the late night grid in 20 years on the Ringer, they'll remember this angle. There'll be people that this was the first thing they loved in WWE, and I think it's important that we have today's guys creating some of those pictures. I don't think it's good if today's fans' eventual memories are the same ones that you and I had, or whoever had, and like
exactly.
these guys are not new by any means. All of them have been going for a long time. All of them have been in WWE for a long time. But this is, for pretty much all involved, almost anyway, this is the height of their run. And it's a special, special story. This, I think, is one of the best angles they've done it's one of the best angles I've ever seen them do, quite frankly. I'm not an expert on WWE the way you are, Bob, but like just gut feeling this particular angle with how it kind of magnified and encapsulated the whole story thus far. Where does this rank? This felt like an all-timer, Bobby.
Yeah, no, it did. Before it kind of happened last night, it was already kind of on the Kofi Mania level. I think it might have passed that. Like, it's up there with the Bryan stuff. It's up there with, I like the Batista and Triple H one a lot because they started kind of planting the seeds for that like 6 months before it happened. That's one that's up there. It's a long build, but yeah, it's up there, man. It's incredible stuff, and I'm really interested in seeing how it pays off because I'm starting to feel like it's not just going to be Roman faces Cody. He almost kind of has to face Sami now, either on one of the nights of Mania or at Elimination Chamber. Yeah. But then you run the thing like Sami kind of needs to win that, and you don't want to diminish Cody winning. And we can get into that more in a couple weeks. Yeah. I mean, but. Well,
I want to kick around something. Before we do, I want to shout out Brent who resubscribed. That was on our last show. We were doing game night, so I missed it. Apologies, Brent. You're the man. Appreciate you. And No One Gun resubscribed also. I've been with us now for 6 months. Thank you, pal. Appreciate you. Hope you're well. So the Jey Uso thing is really interesting, right? Because the natural guess has always been they're going to win the tag titles from the Usos. And I think that's still where the smart money is. I think he'll wrestle Roman in Montreal and then they'll win the tag belts at WrestleMania, which is, I think, actually probably going to main event the first night of WrestleMania, honestly. I really believe that.
Yeah.
And that,
I can see that.
I mean, a tag title match closing WrestleMania is like fucking unfathomable. Like, it's like, it sounds the most, but I honestly think it will by far and away have the most heat of anything that Roman isn't in.
Yep.
Do we have any concern at all? Concerns is a strong word, but like any thoughts on like, I hope they don't undo Jay's development in setting that match up. Now, I expect him to fall in line in some way, but I want to keep this conflicted element to his character, Bob, because I think it's the most compelling thing in the whole promotion. I mean, Jey Uso is just remarkable television. I've been saying this as loud as I can for as long as I can. This guy is a great pro wrestling character. And I almost hate using that word because he's so believable and so authentic. He's just a great pro wrestler, and he's so good at conveying emotion out there. Do you think that's going to be an interesting light to walk, like his part in this whole thing?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's really one of the big stories to watch, that he's just going to, continue to be conflicted, and how's Roman going to handle that? And what does it mean for the tag titles? They've been defending him every week. Are they going to keep doing that? Is there going to still be friction, between him and Jimmy? It's going to be fascinating.
It is, and this was something I've been talking about for a long time. The reason I liked Roman and Sami as the end game was because I liked the idea of Jay winning too. And when I say winning, I don't mean winning the title. I mean like winning this whole saga of his life and escaping and bringing his brother with him, and them kind of actually helping Sami win. Not in they're a new faction or any of that whole shit. Just in a way of like they escape. Roman's the villain here. He's the real villain.
Yeah.
Jimmy was pretty formidable in that regard himself last night, but Roman is the villain, and I hope they keep that element, kind of central, because I think Jay is in a lot of ways to me the most intriguing part of all of it. The rest of the pieces on the puzzle, I know where they're at and I know where they're going, but Jay's somewhat mysterious to me in that regard. And it'll be really interesting what they do. I don't want to kind of move on from it so soon because it was so special, but there's really there's nothing but praise for this, right, Bob? This was a spectacular close to the show.
Absolutely. And, it had to be, because very rarely do they end big shows with angles like this. And, so it had to be a home run, and they did, man.
It was, I'm hesitant to say it because I know it's like, just talk about today's wrestling, but this really was like a classic old school angle.
Yeah.
In terms of just the way it was produced, I have to give them a lot of credit. We give WWE's production a lot of shit, and I think sometimes rightly so, with how over the top they are with their cuts and so. But they shot this thing like a motion picture. I mean, some of the camera, the shot they got of Roman when he got hit by the chair was like an incredible piece of business. Like the face of like anguish and disappointment up close in the camera. It was great. It was absolutely incredible. I thought it was, just mind blowing. And let me stress, folks, I saw the rest of this show on delay. That was one of the only things on the show I saw live. And in some ways, it set me up a little bit because the rest of the show couldn't possibly compare. I don't mean that as a criticism, but fuck, man, what an angle. That was special. So the Bloodline stuff continues to kind of lead the way and set set the promotion's current standard. It's something that's going to be remembered very, very fondly one day. I hope if you are watching it and enjoying it, please try and appreciate it. You know, I mean, smell the roses on this one, because I think this is one that's going to be like part of the famed WWF history books lore, you know, the ones that they go on about over and over again.
Yep.
They're going to repeat this story a lot in terms of like how great it was, and they're going to have earned it, which is not always the case. So credit to all involved. Kevin Owens, obviously, we haven't talked about it much, but none of this happens about him, right? The audience truly loves that guy, and he's
great. And he's a guy where when they do have 2 titles again, I think he should have one of them at some point. He's on that list with a couple other guys that we can talk about from the Rumble when we get there.
It's been a long time, right? It's been a long time for Kevin, so it's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Just quickly to touch our predictions, we had I set the line at an 8, and Bobby and Co all had over. I believe it came in just under. I believe, Bobby, we're at a 7.9. Okay. So there or thereabouts. It was more about the angle.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, everyone had Roman winning. All right, what was your preferred Rumble match of the 2, Bob?
I like the men's one more, I believe.
Yeah, me too. I've seen that being a real debate today, and it's kind of intrigued me. I have to be honest. I've seen much discussion, debate, critique about the men's Rumble. I think I loved this, Bob. I have to be honest with you, mate. I when I went into watching it, I had it spoiled, and I talked to different people about it who were like, and I thought it was fucking awesome. I can't pretend otherwise. I thought it was really, really great. What did you make of the men's Rumble? And then we'll kind of dig into the individual pieces.
Yeah, I thought it ruled, man. Like, they I think 29 out of 30 were guys from the active roster. I know Booker was in there, and I think he was the only real surprise. And that's something that they did a really good job with the women too, which we'll get into. But like, everything kind of felt like it had a purpose. It wasn't there was no like shocking eliminations of a fan favorite just to do it like we've seen before. They picked the guys that they wanted in there for a long time, and they stuck with them. Obviously, Gunther is, man, that was something. I don't know how he did that. I don't know how he did the last 10 minutes with Cody. He's a machine. He's incredible. Yeah. He's a guy that needs to be champion when they have 2 belts again. Drew and Sheamus did a great job. Brock coming in for the clear out spot was awesome too. We got to see some interactions with him that we haven't really seen, and they continued the Lashley stuff, which I don't know if it's going to go to Mania or they're just keeping it open to go to Mania because they don't really have a set plan yet. They have options for him too. It's just, everything just kind of felt meaningful, and it was mostly all what I would consider top guys at this point too. It wasn't, a lot of filler guys that we've seen in the past.
Definitely felt like a much stronger squad than you had last year, right? Mm-hmm. Which was like an all-time low in that regard for the modern era. I've seen a lot of talk about the lack of surprises, and I am actually with you on this. I think it was a really, really positive look for the roster and the promotion that they were able to fill it with their current guys and it not die.
Yeah.
I will say my one critique I would give is there wasn't a lot of set pieces in the match.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of individual moments that were clearly produced to kind of string it along, which is not a huge negative for me, but I get why that is a fair critique of the match. The main reason I found it compelling throughout and wasn't bored at all by what has been somewhat divisive pacing was the guy just mentioned, the guy you just mentioned a minute ago, Gunther, and I think we have to give props to Sheamus and Drew,
yes,
who were just like incredible in this, man. We'll get back to Gunther. We need to talk about him. But Sheamus is how old was Sheamus yesterday, Bob? 45?
Let me see. 45, yes.
45, folks. He was in there. I mean, and there's ways to do the Rumble thing when you're going to be in there for a long time, right? You can kind of hide yourself. Sheamus was in there just whacking folks, eating shots left and right. He was all red and shit. I mean, an unbelievable performance from one of the most just reliable, consistent guys that promotion has ever seen. He's unbelievable. Like, just blow away. And Drew and him is such a great act. I hope they stick with that. I know Sheamus had a tweet, but what do you think, Bob? Can we get some more of those two together? Because they're just an awesome team.
I hope so. It was disappointment on SmackDown. They got taken out of the one tag match. I want to see them face Imperium. They could do that again at some point. But I hope they keep him as a team at least for a little bit longer. I'd like Sheamus to win the Intercontinental title at some point just to finally kind of cap all that off. And I think he's going to. I don't know when necessarily. Maybe Mania if Brock's not working Gunther. But just a special performance from all 3 of those guys.
I think we're going to get Sheamus, Drew, and Gunther in a triple threat, which I like it, but I also kind of think Gunther should have like a signature singles match. That's
Mhm.
the one thing about that. Let's talk about him. I mean, I'm not nearly as well versed in Rumble lore as you are, Bobby. I know you watch the By the Numbers video once a day, but this, to me, by my eye, felt like one of the best Rumble performances ever.
Yeah.
He was the absolute glue of this thing. He was present at every turn.
Mhm.
He had enough standout moments. He just brought a real, and this is something he's done in general. He just brought some fucking grit to it. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
he was in there fighting. It wasn't. It felt different in a way that his best work always does there. And I'm blown away by that guy. I think he genuinely, and this isn't anything new. I'm not giving like a hot take here, but I think in his current form, his best in the world case is like kind of wild because frankly, I mean, this promotion really stylistically should not be suited to him at all.
No. No, that's the
He's
thing. Like,
totally at home, you know.
he's had such a crazy run already, and like he's had so much stuff he's had to overcome just like behind the scenes, just based on how they've done things for the past 30 years or whatever. That it's been great to see, and like they're clearly very high on him, and that was even the case before Triple H took over.
Yeah, he was getting featured. There's obviously the story that Vince had some just horrific intentions, which we luckily did not get to see play out. But yeah, he was the IC champ before, right?
Yeah.
He's incredible. I think it would be shocking if he's not the world's champion at some point next year. I think it'd be stunning. Speaking of such, him and Cody is like something that we knew was kind of money before. We knew that was a magic pairing.
Yeah.
They got around how long did they get to end this match, Bob? Almost 10,
like
right?
10 minutes. Like it was long enough that it was like I've never seen one go this long when, the last two guys are in.
Just epic. Added so much magnitude and gravity to the match and yeah, special close match. Bob, what did you make of that portion and then kind of Cody coming out on top in the end?
Yeah, it was great, man. We spent so much time the past couple months thinking, who's going to win if it's not Cody, and they took the safe pick, and it worked for everybody. The crowd was fired up to see him, and he looked great. He was hitting his moves, and I don't know how much he's going to wrestle between now and Mania, but he's happy to be back, man. And I'm glad to have him back.
So this has to be like, what is the best match for Cody as world champ? Like, what is the best defense for him to make, like a SummerSlam, for example? We just look ahead. You fantasy booking. I'm really struggling to look past Gunther for that role.
Yeah, I agree. Especially if you lose the Intercontinental title, you draft him to Raw. Just kind of get it going.
I will say the Cody Brock match is very compelling to me.
That'll be fun too. I'm looking forward to that. I think Cody and Sheamus could have a really fun match. Just look at some of the other guys in there yesterday. Cody and Drew, Cody and Lashley would have a fun one.
That'd be good, yeah.
Yeah.
There's some options. I think Gunther kind of jumps off the page, honestly. I really do. Just want to see if there's anyone else that we should quickly give it. I have to mention Brock and his like singular way of taking a clothesline over the top where he does like a handstand on the apron.
Yeah.
He's done it twice now in the Rumble. Law. Incredible. The Judgment Day act is like a peak example of how weird wrestling is because there's no fucking way that act should work. That is one of the most ridiculous. The trio of dudes in that faction is like an insane combination. If Bob texts me that pitch, I'd be like, Bob, stop. Get off. But if like the crowd, they hate them.
Yeah,
it really works, Bobby. What do
they did a really good job embracing that people don't like Dom Mysterio and just running with it. And he's done great with that. Finn's obviously very good, and I've always liked Priest. He's always kind of felt like he was going to struggle to find a role, and then they found this role for him, and it's worked, man. And Edge coming back was cool. And I like the Beth and Rhea stuff not being in the Women's Rumble. Just get it out of the way early, and it was a really good touch.
Quick few notes on the negative side. Poor Kofi.
Yeah.
That was a bummer. I hope he's okay. It does have to be mentioned. Johnny Wrestling's lack of response was striking. And I don't say that as like to be a dick or to be good luck to the man. And he's obviously a very talented dude, but that was very, very noticeable, wasn't it, Bob?
Yeah. He also didn't really do anything for a half hour or whatever he was in there.
Yep. Karrion Kross, that was not a surprise because he always gets that reaction, but he's still there. It was really, really good. I personally, again, I kind of loved it, honestly. I liked it a lot more than I expected to. One thing we didn't establish here was we get to the women's one in a moment. Like, this win in a lot of ways was very Triple H when you kind of think about this Rumble, right? Like, both winners were very obvious.
Yeah.
And it was like the clear choice. But that doesn't mean it's bad. And obvious is usually obvious for a reason. One thing you should probably, in years moving forward, he probably needs to do a better job of like establishing other contenders.
Yeah.
But ultimately, what do we always say at Triple H's start? It's like he's very competent and logical, even if not the most dynamic. And if you just get the big picture right, and you don't get in your own way on that front, you can come out with a positive overlook and or outlook overall. So all good. Edge's cameo in this I thought was very funny.
Yeah.
And that was the men's Rumble. I thought it was one of
Oh,
the
also, I guess they're doing Logan Paul and Seth Rollins now, which okay, sure, yeah. I guess
that'll probably be good, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I do want to talk. Bringing Pat McAfee out was a nice surprise as well. Like, I like Cole and Corey; they're fine, but like adding Pat McAfee to that duo really did a lot. I know you're not super high on him all the time, but I think he brought the energy that you need for a show like that.
It's hard. I like Pat McAfee as like a piece of like what he does in wrestling good. I just don't like him necessarily as an announcer.
Yeah.
As a manager and like as a personality, he's great. He's a little too much for me. But I agree, he does bring a lot of energy. All right. Let's now jump to the Women's Rumble. Before we do that, actually, let me go back. Let's look at our predictions here. Okay, so we all picked Cody, Bob, right?
Yes.
Iron Man. What we got here?
I think someone said Gunther, maybe. Jack might have.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I think
Cody was definitely brought up. I remember we having a debate about that. Jack had a dark horse of Gable, owned most eliminations. You had Gunther. Oracle had Braun. Lion was at 7.5. Bobby, you took the over. 7.26, mate. We're a little shy on all of these, unfortunately. Nonetheless, Women's Rumble. Okay. Now, leading up to this, there was a lot of debate about like what is going on here. They've announced no women, and of who they've announced, clearly Rhea's going to win. Yes, indeed, what happened. They even went with like the cliche. She came out with one. I do agree with this. Like, mix that up a little bit. That was a little too video game fantasy booking. Like, 1 and 30. Like, that's it. And the fact they also clearly wanted her to be number one specifically, she couldn't be two. Liv had to be two to make sure we had the one thing, Yeah. I am torn on this match, Bob. It definitely wasn't bad. The finish is great.
Yeah.
I thought a lot of it was kind of uninteresting. And I'm not happy to say that by any means. I mean, I like a lot of the women involved, but I thought the lack of star power was very obvious in this one.
Yeah, it's interesting because it wasn't bad. You're right. Like, there were just a lot of downtime, which you'd rather not have in a Royal Rumble. Like, the men's one didn't have that. Like, the men's one, there was always something happening. But a lot of the women's one, especially early on, before like all of Damage Control got in there, was a little slow. I think they did a good job with Damage Control. I know we've been up and down on them, but I think they kind of looked like a genuine big deal here. Keeping Becky and Bayley going, even if it's just for a short period of time, is the right move, obviously, given what happened with their cage match. And I'm glad Asuka's back. It's going to be a really cool thing to see as her as a heel, because we got it a little bit with Kyrie, but I don't think she's ever had like a singles heel run on the main roster. So that'll be very cool. I'm glad Rhea won. Not a lot of surprise in this one. I thought the Chelsea Green thing was pretty funny, honestly. The Michelle McCool stuff was cool just because she came from the crowd. Like, otherwise I wouldn't have really cared. But yeah, overall, I think this one they did a good job picking 4 or 5 people to focus on and focusing on them, which is a gift and a blessing, I guess, because that's how the women's or a gift and a curse, because that's how the women's division's kind of gotten to this point. But I guess if you're going to do it, you go all in with it, at least for the road to WrestleMania, and then try and reset. But like, it was Rhea, Bayley and Becky, Liv, and I'm trying to see who else was really focused in a big way.
Asuka?
Yeah.
A few things here. Firstly, love to the Oracle of Wrestling I see in the chat. Well, you're well, mate. Have a great Sunday. Football on. I agree with what you said about Damage Control. My continued thing would be, I don't know if it's worth what they're doing with Becky. I think Becky got a huge reaction, was fucking awesome in this match when she was in it. but she just feels like she's playing a role that's like beneath her in some ways. And I don't mean that as a slight on Damage Control, but she's like a genuine star, man. Like I feel like this match would have benefited from more Becky, honestly.
Yeah, I agree.
That's one thing. Rhea obviously was damn good in it. She didn't have quite a Gunther level performance. She was a little bit more absent in the meat of the match, I think it's fair to say. But whenever Rhea takes, whenever she feeds someone's offense, she takes these incredible bumps and fucking head bumps, and she's spiking us. I mean, she's spectacular in that regard. Everyone knows how high we all are on her, so that was not a surprise. She was tremendous. Asuka was one of the big stories, right? You mentioned it. I mean, that was a big deal, and I think a lot of people kind of predicted that in terms of kind of rebooting her. Do we think she may be the match for Charlotte Flair? Because as of right now, I have no clue what that match is, and she kind of feels like the prime candidate.
Yeah, I hope so. Like, I just have her jump to SmackDown. Who cares? It's fine, and kind of run that back. They've had good matches before. Like the Mania 34 match isn't bad. The result's bad, but like the match itself is actually pretty good. And I know that was 5 years ago or whatever, but I think they can have good matches together. Asuka's still very good. Charlotte is fine in big spots. So yeah, I'd be cool with that.
Liv Morgan needs, a real focus here because I think she's had a really tough few months, right? In terms of after losing the belt and kind of when you get to that fairy tale ending, what do you do next? I think obviously her work's come a long way. Everyone has credited her for that, but she's felt a little bit aimless for a while. I know they've kind of given her a new character in recent months post Ronda.
Mm-hmm.
She was really, really good here, man. And I think she's a very fair candidate for the role we just talked about, honestly, at this point. I think there's an argument that's what she should be doing at WrestleMania.
I agree.
I'm not like dead set on it. You know what I mean? Like I think there's different ways you can go there. But if you said to me the goal for SmackDown's WrestleMania match is to give Liv a title win that's more, traditional than a cash-in, I think that'd be pretty cool, honestly. I don't know. What do you think? Charlotte and Liv that do something?
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, they've actually done a pretty good job with Liv since she lost the title, I think, because there was some concern that she might just kind of fade back into the scenery, and she hasn't. And credit to her, credit to them, and I think she is a believable contender, and that would go a long way in kind of solidifying her as part of that next generation, because she's only 26 or whatever, and eventually you got to start thinking about that. And they seem to be. Rhea's going to be in a big spot, Liv's there. Bianca's still fairly young, but even she might be kind of starting to pursue other opportunities soon enough, So you gotta get those next people up.
The finish itself, as we've kind of mentioned, was great. There is something to discuss here. Nia Jax, which may be the funniest kind of incarnation yet of Triple H bringing back everyone who worked there in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
There is a lot of, I don't know what is out there and what's been reported, but there is a lot of buzz that she's back.
I think they have a shirt for her, so I guess so. I mean, it was weird because it's like, all right, they're clearly setting up for, a clear out spot, but who's going to do it? And then, first of all, they hit her music too early before they did the countdown, which was very funny. But yeah, she didn't even really do a clear out spot. Everyone beat her up instead, which I don't know. She probably doesn't need to be back.
Probably.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even really hate her in ring, but she's just not a person you need around.
What do you do with her?
Yeah, that's the other thing. Like, unless she's facing Charlotte, she's not going to be in a tag team, I don't think, because where would that go? So, yeah.
Yeah, they also fucked up her entrance, which was very funny.
They did.
Chelsea Green spot you mentioned, Bob, was a cute deal. I mean, she's apparently going to do this Karen gimmick. What we're hearing, right? And I saw there was a video where she kind of started that.
That's fine. Whatever.
Yeah. She's a character wrestler.
You need people like that around. Like, everyone gave her shit for having ideas last time, but at least she has ideas.
Yeah. I don't know, Cody. I don't know about Nia and the Bloodline.
Yeah, probably not that one.
I don't know, man.
I'd probably not add people to the Bloodline right now because
Piper needs bringing up. I think she had a great show. I was really happy for her, man.
That was awesome.
Her performance in the main roster was it always felt to me a little bit unsure of herself. She's obviously very capable. She looked great in this match. She was really confident.
She did.
And she adds something different to the division, right? She can give you a different kind of match, and hopefully they can book her in a way that's not I mean, I don't think anyone expects her to be like a top 4 woman in either division, but you need to give her a certain amount of credibility. She can't just be doing jobs every week. It does nothing for anyone. So
Right.
hopefully they can do something with her. It may help that she's not Dewdrop. Maybe, just maybe. What did you make of Piper's big comeback in the Rumble?
Yeah, I was glad, she got her name back. I liked some of the Dewdrop stuff, at least mostly in ring, but like it feels like, she's more comfortable now. Like you said, she's healthy. I know she had COVID. She was talking about that earlier this week. Yeah, she looks good, man. And again, you got to find a role for her because she probably shouldn't be in title matches. Maybe for like the B pay-per-view, she could be. But yeah, there's some non-title stuff you can do, and it's interesting because, like you said, she is different. She's unique, and there's stuff there.
Absolutely. A couple other people I want to give some credit to. I think it kind of goes without saying Roxanne Perez is special. That was well known long before. Yeah, she needs to. I mean, like she got like a decent reaction, but once she started wrestling, like she's just great. Prodigy is the right term for her, right?
Yeah.
She's very, very special. She looked tremendous here. I always think Raquel Rodriguez has really turned into like a solid prospect. Obviously, she was assisted a little bit here by the crowd response to her and all that good stuff. But I think she's like one of the standout talents on SmackDown. Elsewhere, Zelina Vega took some pretty gnarly bumps. Shout out to her. She was doing some sort of cosplay. Bob, who was Zelina Vega cosplaying as?
It was someone from Street Fighter because she's a commentator in the game or something, which is pretty cool.
Oh my God, there you go. Yeah, there was a lot of nice performances here. I just thought it was kind of a little bit uninteresting in the meat of the match. Now, the key with that is it's the second Rumble match on the card, and that will always be challenging. So the finish hit, which is what matters most. Very good. All right, okay. Not everything was good on this show. The placement on this show was insane.
Yeah.
When this came out and I saw they were doing Pitch Black and then Alexa and Bianca, I was like, are they going to like bleed into each other? Like that's the only way I could explain it in my head was like, maybe, like Bray will be going up the ramp and Alexa will be coming down the ramp and that's the reason for it. Because there's no other reason to do this.
No.
That wasn't the case. I don't know if there was a good place to put the Pitch Black match, but doing it here, like this was bizarre to me. What did you make of the way the show was laid out in that regard? I thought it was odd.
Yeah, I would have probably. It's tough, I guess, when you have 2 Rumbles, but maybe put the stupid musical performance in between these 2 matches and just to break it up somehow. Because especially with the end where it's like, oh, Uncle Howdy is dead or whatever, he's not going to interfere in the Alexa stuff, and then kind of just did anyway.
Yeah, because that's what I thought they were getting at. But from what I could get from the video, the idea was instead that Uncle Howdy was like, the reason he didn't get involved was because Alexa said she didn't need him.
Mm-hmm.
So if he wanted to, I guess he could have just got up.
Yeah.
I don't fucking know. I mean, let's talk about one half of this. We'll get to Pitch Black because that somewhat made me mad. So the Raw Women's title, Bianca Belair, Alexa Bliss. I think, there's a lot to talk about here and a lot of different moving pieces. I thought it was better than their Raw match, which again probably says more about their Raw match than this. It was just, to me, it was nothing. I didn't think it was like offensive. So I know a lot of people did, and that's fine. I mean, it is what it is. To me, it was just like nothing. And the thing that was really, telling was the lack of heat. I mean, this thing, no one bought there was a title change. No one cared. And that is a huge indictment of the build and the first match and all of the above. And I think a lot of this spooky stuff, folks like us who are nerds and online are not supposed to like. But the crowd will always tell you a story.
Yeah.
The crowd didn't care about this match. And that is alarming because, it's like they're not new to the show. Like they've both been very popular previously. And that kind of tells you that in a lot of ways, this feud got both women under more than it did over. What did you make of the lack of response to this one?
Yeah, I agree, because that was kind of my thought too. Like, it was better than the Raw match, and I was thinking about it more. Like, that's not much of an achievement. It was fine. Like, they were fine, but like, no one cared, and you knew what the result was going to be, and then you kind of knew that there was some shit that we didn't want to see coming at the end. So, like, I don't know.
It's hard because it does. I mean, as much as we've had our fun with it, and like, we will like do the big sell job for it. So it does feel like Alexa both wants to be and should be in the spooky business at this point.
Yeah.
Like I don't know this, Clearly, I've not asked her about it, but it just doesn't feel like this moves her much.
Mm-hmm.
I thought there were elements of the physicality that I thought were kind of fun, and they were being pretty rough early on.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's like there's no heat. You've got 7 minutes, and they just kind of went out there and had a match, and there was nothing to it. And this is part of the problem with when you do a build, like they did with Uncle Howdy and such. It's like the only thing the audience has any kind of understanding of what's going to happen next is Uncle Howdy.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't send them out there to just have a match where Alexa gets like a fucking lock on Bianca's back or whatever. You know what I mean? Like it's ridiculous because the whole feud has been about Uncle Howdy. In addition, and I really did feel bad for him on this front, they're following fucking pitch black match, which is like one of the most ridiculous things ever. And they're out there changing holds. And I didn't think the work was terrible. I didn't think it was particularly good, don't get me wrong, but it's just like, it kind of felt like this was positioned to die and did exactly that, unfortunately. It was a shame, right? I don't know.
Yeah, and again, that's where you come into an issue with 2 Rumbles and, the main event being what it was. Like, the other 2 matches were kind of screwed either way because they're going to have to follow a Rumble either way or follow each other, which... And it's not an excuse. Like I said, they didn't have the heat. Like, I don't think the build was particularly good. I thought some of the brawls that they did leading up were good, but then they kind of lost me when they pivot to the spooky stuff. And, it's a shame because I really do like both of them, and I would have liked to see him have like an actual
good match,
really strong match. Yeah,
I just think they've really struggled since she came back to find a role for Alexa. I don't think they know what she should be doing. I hope sincerely. I mean, I'm pretty sure it won't be my thing, but I do hope wherever this is going, she can find some comfort in that role because, Alexa is very much an outlier on this roster now. And there is an increasing, if you look at NXT, there's a lot of women who are going to be coming up who are ready to go, And Alexa's kind of been there and done that. And I think she wants to kind of play a character. So I have no issue with it. I mean, it's not saying that I will probably be enthralled by it, but I absolutely think there's something to be said for, giving that audience something they want to watch and letting them do their thing. But I need to find it quick because I think the transition in that direction has like kind of sunk Alexa a lot. So hopefully they figure it out. Same thing for Bianca. If nothing else, I think we're both glad she got a clean, emphatic win here, right? I think that was a positive, and I'm glad they didn't kind of muddy those waters. I am a little bit concerned about her heading into this Mania match. I think there's a really good chance the crowd's cheering Rhea at WrestleMania. And the problem with that is not that match because it will be a good atmosphere. It's like what happens then? Because when you're we both think the world of Bianca Belair, and this being bad was certainly not on her.
No.
Again, bad even said, just nothing. But where do you go when this reign ends and she's been the champ of this division for a year? And it's like, what is then the next arc for her as a babyface? Like how do you just full Cena it and she just keeps doing it? Like what follows this, Bob?
Yeah, I don't know. Like I think you have to maybe think about turning her, but I don't know how that would look. Plus, she's got all the mainstream stuff she does, so it is kind of like Cena, where I don't know if you have to just kind of lean into it and hope that some crowds are better than others. Like there hasn't been the full blown like they resent her. There's some in some cities if you really listen close, but like for the most part, they still like her. But it is interesting to see, after she loses the title, what do you do then?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. To be clear, no one's booing. I mean, she's fine. It's like noticeable that she's called off. The Damage Control feud like called her, and this Alexa feud put in a freezer. I mean, it's like it did nothing. Hopefully they can get some momentum back heading into the Rhea match. I think we will want to see that match. I hope it has some juice going in. I think there's no doubt about the work. Rhea, Jay Shell said this on Tuesday. Like Rhea is the only woman on Raw who feels like genuinely hot, and like she has real momentum. And it is a little bit alarming to me that she's the one who's interacting with the men all the time.
Yeah.
Like everyone else in that division, as stacked as it is, I don't think you could say any of them are feeling like they're trending positively in terms of momentum. Yeah, I don't know if it's one name. Do you?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, so and I don't know what. I guess Asuka you could say after night one feels like it, but it could be interesting. Like, and Willie's right. She's taking one clean loss. Obviously, she's someone you need to factor in a major way. She deserves to be. She's one of the top talents in the roster. But it's going to be interesting to see what they do. She's been champ for a year. and it increasingly feels like we're on our last legs of this run. So now let's see
Yeah.
what they can come up with afterwards. But nonetheless, let's quickly go back. Women's Rumble. I picked Naomi, good bit. Oracle picked Becky, quote, I guess. Bob, you had Rhea Ripley. Iron Woman, Liv, we were all aware of. We didn't know Rhea would be alongside her in that regard. We had Rhea for most eliminations. I set the line at a 6.5. Bobby, you took the over. The match came in at a 6.66.
Oh, there we go.
The Bianca Alexa match, we all picked Bianca, or you all picked Bianca. So I set the line at 5. Bobby, ever the optimist, over with taking the over. We came in at a 3.59.
Yeah.
We head to Gotham City for the next one, folks. Before that match, we had the Mountain Dew Pitch Black match. I was very mad at this, Bob. Well, no, I wasn't very mad. I mean, who could possibly care? But I will say I thought it was insulting. This wasn't funny. I was very, very, and I was arguing with Monty about this earlier, who told me it was funny, and this was not funny. This was just
they just
had a
what
match.
I said too. I'm like, at least if it was bad, we'd have something to talk about. But it was just there. Like the neon popcorn was kind of funny, I guess, but like that's about it.
It took itself too seriously.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted horse shit here. I wanted I guess in some ways we got that, but I wanted cinematic horse shit.
Instead, every time they cut to Bray, his eyes are different or whatever. Who cares?
They just had a match under funny lights.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, Alexa and Bianca got 7.
Mm-hmm.
This got 5 minutes. I have to say, I think LA Knight made a lot of the program. This was not the most flattering presentation.
No.
He honestly, anything he gained in the build-up, I'm not completely sure he maintained with this finish. I thought it's made him look like an absolute nothing to me. I don't know. What did you make of that part of it?
I think he's a guy who can recover from that pretty easily just because he can talk.
I agree.
That helps. But yeah, this wasn't great for him. And we knew it was coming.
Oh, yeah.
No one expected it to be good. We just kind of expected it to at least be entertaining in some sense of the word, and it really wasn't.
Yeah. Well, before we can't talk about the rest of this, so I set the line at a 4.
Yeah.
You took the under. It's got a 1.94, which is incredible. Respect. Yeah, just tremendous work all around. I want to, the post-match with Uncle Howdy, in which he overshot LA by about a mile.
Yeah.
Very funny. I don't even know what he was really attempting to do there. Sort of dived into a swimming pool of some kind. At what point do we... Well, I mean, I don't think it's worth... what do you make of this Bray thing at this point? I mean, seriously. I mean, how does one even tackle this? What do we even say now? I don't know, Bob.
He has ideas, and God bless him for them. They're just not very good, and seemingly no one wants to tell him no. I don't know. I don't know what you do from here. I think at least Triple H is smart enough not to put the title on him, so that's promising.
There's a win. Okay, are we genuinely going to this Karrion Kross Scarlett thing with him and Alexa? Do you think that's what we're actually... Because Uncle Howdy's... the way the pace they're telling that story, it feels like they're actually going to do Bray vs. Bo at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
It's fucking insane. Who wants that? Bro, come on.
No, that's bad.
I don't I don't want to ask you a prediction, but I have to. I'm sorry. I'm too interested. What's happening next in the story? Is Bray and Alexa now going to intertwine?
I think so. He said in that press conference gimmick that they did that, there's something planned for Alexa. Yeah.
I'm sure it's good.
So, it'll be fine. And, well.
Look, there's an audience for it. I'm not trying to. I'm sure somewhere in the world there was a youngster, with his 8 Bray Wyatt alternate action figures in front of him. Maybe a pizza too, being like, "This is the coolest shit I've ever seen." And God bless that kid.
Yeah.
I hope they never rewatch it as an adult, but it didn't do much for me. I guess it wasn't for me. I guess I'm trying to think of now what even this is the thing with the Bray stuff. What is even the match at the end of this? That's what I don't know. This is the thing. I'm sorry, I know we're spending too much time on this, but so the story is Uncle Howdy is haunting Bray.
Yeah.
And Alexa.
Mm-hmm.
Do we agree on that?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what does that ultimately mean for a wrestling match? Are they going to do like a handicap with Bo Dallas opposite them? Are they going to do? Is Liv going to be on Bo's team? Who's on Howdy?
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I don't know, man. Like, I guess the payoff, you do like a buried alive match and then Bray's free from him and do something different. I don't know.
Did you suggest killing him?
Well, it's the only way to free yourself from him, man. You've seen Halloween.
How dare you? How dare you evoke the name of Michael Myers in this scenario, you piece of shit, Bob? That was uncalled for, Bobby. All right, anyway. I do agree with this. The crowd really struggled. I honestly don't think the crowd recovered for this until the last 2 minutes of the Women's Rumble.
Yeah.
In the Bray's entrance, they're really weird, and they give it like 90 seconds of the match and then just kind of conceded. And they were silent for like the next hour of the show. But, whatever. Nonetheless, that was just one thing of the show. I'm sorry, folks. I'm sorry to dwell on that, but it just fascinates me. I swear it was only months ago that the take was like, Bray is actually a genius, just Vince fucked with his ideas. And now I'm watching him wrestling the fucking glow in the dark. Like it was like a Naomi entrance. I don't know. Yeah, nonetheless.
It's not great, but whatever.
You get. It's a variety show, brother. Right? It's
exactly.
A variety show. Wrestling buffet, folks. Overall, what would you say? Like, give me a mark out of 10. But what did you make overall of the Rumble?
Probably about a 7.5. I mean, there were 3 matches that I enjoyed, and one that I kind of enjoyed, and one I didn't care about.
Mm-hmm.
So 7.5 feels right.
Yeah, I'm around a 7. Wrestling is, and I've said this a million times, wrestling is broad strokes. That's what wrestling has always been.
Mm-hmm.
Nerds like us will always explore the details, but at core, wrestling's triumph or failure is based on broad strokes and kind of the big picture.
Yeah.
And unquestionably, last night was an absolute colossal smash hit in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
You've got 2 Rumble winners that people are happy with. You got a red hot angle to close the show that was like, the high point of an angle that's kind of a storyline, I should say, that's kind of, been the highlight of the WWE program for the last 2 years. So they got the big picture right. I do think there's an element of like back to the drawing board in terms of why was the idea to have both Bray and Alexa on this show wrestling. And I don't mean that even like a way of their talent so much as it was such a strange decision. We talked about this, right? Like, why have 2 law matches?
Mm-hmm.
And what it ultimately meant was that one of them wasn't a law match, which kind of in some ways undercut it even more, right? Because they were just out there wrestling. So I think there's a real question to be asked about why that was the decision. The show was very much, was not perfect. There was flaws to it, but ultimately, I think when you get the big picture as right as they did here, it's hard to kind of dwell on those, right? I mean, they nailed what mattered most ultimately, right, Bob?
Yep, exactly.
I will say I thought it was very, very much a Triple H Rumble in terms of like, as I said earlier, pretty steady, pretty safe, but that doesn't mean bad. Very, very logical. I think with a little bit of foresight in booking the rest of the show, they would have been even closer to an absolute home run overall. So
I think really, the 2 Rumbles are what we needed after last year's 2. So
absolutely, it was. I mean, that was one of the other benefits of the show too. Was last year's was such a disaster,
exactly.
right? But no, it was. It was really, really good. Okay, what's worse, Bray stuff or Joe making us listen to Dax's podcast and him saying 2010 Bobble and still got it? Well, it depends who you ask. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased on that one, Bob. I don't know what you think, but I personally think the Bray stuff's slightly worse. What do you make of it?
I would agree.
Yeah. Dax, go listen to FTR with Dax Harwood now. You get on any podcast app that you utilize. Hear Tales from the Road, NXT Glory Days, Bob. The bright lights of Raw and SmackDown. All Elite Wrestling. EVP drama. Hear it all, folks, with FTR with Dax Harwood. Bob, you have anything to say about promoting Dax podcast?
No, I haven't actually listened to it yet. I need to. I need to listen. With like 10 episodes at this point, I should probably get on that.
It's like 4, but there's 100 headlines from everyone. So
fair.
When you listen to it, you'll be disappointed. There's absolutely no drama in it whatsoever, and it's just Dax talking quietly into a microphone. Nonetheless, Bobby, Any final thoughts, plugs, promotions?
No, like I said, I'm glad both Rumbles were good. I'm glad the main event was good. Pretty excited for the road to WrestleMania. Still, seeing if Stone Cold factors in, John Cena factors in, all that good stuff. Seeing what they do with Brock and Lashley. It should be a fun next couple months. Hopefully, it's all we can really ask for.
Bob, do you have any comment on Natalia's hat?
Good hat.
Was a good hat. You should get one of those.
Yeah, I don't see why not.
I agree with you. I don't know how electric the television will be, but I think there's a very good chance that they're going to hit in terms of producing a good WrestleMania card. We did discuss Nia.
We did.
But for better or worse, we did, folks. Review the footage. So, yeah, I think they're going to end up with a strong card, and I'm pretty confident WrestleMania, both nights will be good shows. The build, we shall see. Things feel like they're pretty well set. I'll say that. I think this was an encouraging show in that regard, even if not a 10 out of 10 necessarily.
Yeah.
I think it was a positive overall. All right, folks, Fleet Week will not be on tonight. The lads can't make it. It will be on at some point. I don't know when. They've got to find a new time slot. So keep your eye out on at Late Night Grin for the latest on that. Cubase, Bob, they just can't even make their fucking dates anymore. Nonetheless, they're all getting drunk last night in Discord.
Unprofessional.
Kids these days, man. We've got brands that hold images, you know what I mean? But anyway, I might come back later tonight. I'm going to watch this Higuchi match and maybe that Rocky Romero match from last week. I don't know yet, but I might watch some other wrestling. But I might be back later tonight. I'm not sure. I'm going to cut my hair so I don't have to keep wearing fucking hats on wrestling podcasts. I can't, after giving Bob so much shit about his hair, I can't possibly come on with my hair looking the way it does right now. So that's what I'm about to do. I may be back later. I don't know. Tomorrow, Recipes Worldwide, myself, Monty, Ibu, and Manny the Hooper, who's been making a lot of friends on Twitter.com. Tuesday, we have the Jay Shill and Joe show. Maybe Fleet Week. I don't know yet. And yes, we'll keep rolling as usual. We appreciate you guys for a great Rumble week. We hope you enjoyed the show and all of our many pieces of content along the way. It's been a great time. Thanks to Bob for winning us the quiz on Friday. On to the road to WrestleMania. Right, Bobby?
Hell yeah.
Yep. There we go, folks. We're on our way. See you soon. Keep grinning. Enjoy this outro. Goodbye.